In this tutorial, we're going to talk about the new COPPA legislation from the FTC and how it could affect websites. And I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my opinions here as the rule of law. There's a lot of gray areas. There's a lot of lack of detail in how to comply with COPPA, but there are some broad strokes that you should be aware of, and that could possibly apply to you. On YouTube, if you look up COPPA, there's a whole lot of bad press about how COPPA is the end of YouTube. It's going to be drastic. There's going to be some big changes, but I don't think it's the end of YouTube as a whole. Unfortunately, there will be a lot of creators who are negatively impacted by it, but I think YouTube as a whole will be just fine. But COPPA extends way beyond YouTube. It's a law that applies to everybody. Nobody's above the law, and COPPA applies to everyone who's creating content online that might be interacted with by children. I personally am completely in favor of protecting children online. We have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old, and my wife and I are very conscientious of what they see and what they're exposed to online, and COPPA is a step towards that regulation. And just like GDPR, where it was in the EU, but it affects people globally, even if you're not in the EU, you should be aware of GDPR and what it means. Even if you're not involved with any kids' content, you should be aware of COPPA and what it means. And I think this is just another step towards the regulation of the internet. And some people are totally against that. Some people are totally for it. There's a lot of people in the middle. I don't really know where I stand. I know that my father and I used to have a restaurant. We co-owned a restaurant, and we had a liquor license. And just the amount of regulation that goes into that, and the amount of paperwork and forms you have to fill out, and permits you have to apply for, and inspectors who have to come and make sure your facility is up to snuff. It's crazy the amount of regulation you have in the real world, and then you come to the internet, and there's no regulation whatsoever. So it was inevitable that at some point there'd be some kind of regulation coming. Hopefully, it's never too stringent, but it might be. You just never know. And all these new laws coming into place are just one step closer to too much regulation, COPPA being the next step. Is it too much right now? I don't think so, but it might be in the future. Either way, you should be aware of what COPPA is. That's what this tutorial is about. My name is Bjorn Allpass from WP Learning Lab, where we help you get better at WordPress so you can earn more for yourself, for your clients, and for your business. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. I try to answer them the best I can, and we're getting started on this tutorial right now. In just a minute, I'm going to talk about why COPPA might affect your website, which is probably why you're here. But first, I want to talk about what COPPA is in case you don't know. And if you want to know more about it, feel free to search COPPA on YouTube and you'll find boatloads of videos, really negative videos on how it's pretty much the end of the world. And there are a lot of channels that will be negatively impacted by COPPA, especially channels, or mostly channels, creating kids content or content created specifically for kids. Most channels will likely be unaffected, but again, we don't really know anything at this point. These rules go into effect at the start of next year, the start of 2020. That's when these are really going to be enforced. And even now, when anyone uploads a video, we have to say whether it's made for children or not. And so that's how YouTube is defining what kids' videos are and what aren't. And those kids' videos, unfortunately, will lose the ability to accept comments. They'll likely be demonetized, and they won't be promoted, as in no notifications will be sent out to subscribers when the video is published, which is essentially going to kill content directed towards kids. At least that's the interpretation right now of the very vague statements that have been made by the FTC and by YouTube on their blog post over here. I've linked to these 3 pages down below. You may or may not know this. YouTube was fined $170 million recently for violations of COPPA. And what they did was retarget ads to children under the age of 13. Which means they're collecting data about children under the age of 13, including their watching habits, and then showing retargeted ads to them. So if they watched a video about Shopkins, maybe they're now seeing ads about Shopkins. And that's what the FTC is upset about. But the problem is YouTube does not know if someone watching a video is under the age of 13. All YouTube knows is someone's watching that video. And if that person is logged into that YouTube account, when that account was created, the person who created it had to select an age or a birth date. So YouTube knows the given age of whoever owns that account. Whether that's the real age or not, they do not know. It could have been a child who's 12 years old creating an account that has a different birth date, so it looks like they're older. YouTube doesn't know that. In my household, we have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old, and I'm all about protecting them. So whenever they're on YouTube, which is really rare, actually, I'm with them, and I'm watching things with them. And they are logged into my account, or we're logged into my account on YouTube, and we're watching kids' videos. And if we look on YouTube's blog here, it says here, this part right here, we're changing how we treat data for children's content on YouTube. Starting in about 4 months, This is published in September. We'll treat data from anyone watching children's content on YouTube as coming from a child, regardless of the age of the user, or regardless of the age submitted when the account was created. So anybody watching a child's video or video created for a child is going to be assumed to be a child. And it goes on to say, this means that we will limit data collection and use on videos made for kids only what is needed to support the operation of the service, i.e. to play the video. We'll also stop serving personalized ads on this content entirely, and some features will no longer be available for this type of content, like comments and notifications. So it's essentially saying that those videos are dead. I think is whatever, that's what everybody reads when they're reading this. And there's really no way around it because YouTube does not know the age of a person. That's why they have to assume, regardless of the age of the user, we're going to assume it's a child watching if they're watching a video created for children, because YouTube doesn't know. They can't figure it out. And even if they could, like I'm watching videos with my kids, and maybe it's even just me watching a video about a toy because I want to buy that toy for Christmas maybe, I want to see how it works. Me as a parent watching a video for children, because toy videos are for children, at least that's how they're labeled. And so then it's just going to assume that I'm a child watching that video. And this is going to hurt a lot of channels. But you're building WordPress sites. And the fact of the matter is that COPPA can apply to anything online that has an ad on it. So if you are using Google AdSense on your site, you may have retargeting even from Google search. Google doesn't know how old someone is. If a 12-year-old goes to your site or your client's site and they're retargeted with an ad, that can open you or Google, I'm not sure, it's all very vague, they can open somebody up to huge fines, $42,000 per infraction. Per infraction. That's why the YouTube settlement was $170 million, because there's a lot of infractions. And so you don't want that for your site. And the fact is, and right now YouTube's getting all the press. But if you go to this page right here, which is the COPPA page, the children's privacy page right here, linked to down below, nowhere on here except for this spot right here does it even mention YouTube. It's all about your business and COPPA. Here's a 6-step compliance plan for your business. COPPA rule, not just for kids sites. It doesn't say YouTube, it says kids sites. And not just that it's for kids sites, but it's for anybody who creates something for kids sites. This article here is saying if you create an add-on or a plugin or something that's used on a kids site, even you have to be COPPA compliant. My point is, it's not just YouTube. COPPA applies to websites. So if you're involved in a website that's creating content for children that are under the age of 13, which is not uncommon, they exist, they're on the internet, they like to read, they like to play games, they like to solve problems or whatever educational content a site provides, kids are watching that. And so you have to be careful if there are ads being served. And this is brand new, so we don't really know what that means. Be careful if there are ads being served. You could potentially just take off AdSense. You'd probably want to take off your Facebook pixel, because Facebook isn't going to know whether it's a 12-year-old or a 50-year-old accessing your site, because it could be parents going to a crafting site, learning about crafts they can do at home with their kids. Facebook doesn't know whether it's a parent or a kid looking that up, but then they'll be pixeled and potentially retargeted with ads on Facebook, because yes, Facebook does not allow anyone younger than 13 on their platform, but people younger than 13 get on their platform. And so COPPA is really a far-reaching legislation. A lot of people can be affected. Your websites can be affected. So the bottom line is make sure you're COPPA compliant. And the easiest way, I think, is just get rid of AdSense. Get rid of any retargeting advertising. You can always sell products if you're selling, say you have a crafting site and you're selling a booklet of crafting plans for kids. I think, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure it's totally fine, because you're not marketing it to kids, you're marketing it to the parents. And you don't have any kind of retargeting on the site. You just have a sales page or an opt-in for something, and then you just sell the product. The trouble is the retargeting, the collection of data from a child. And you could possibly run into issues if you're asking for a name and an email address and a child under 13 enters a name and email address. That could be a violation of COPPA because you now have that child's data and you don't even know it's a child. So how does that work? I don't know. All I'm saying is I'm not a lawyer, but this is bigger than just YouTube. This is anybody on the internet collecting data that could possibly come from a child, whether you know it's from a child or not, is the big problem. And that's the big gray area that hopefully will be cleared up in the future. And it's just something to be aware of. I don't want you to panic. I'm not trying to be a fear mongerer. And usually when stuff like this happens, I don't even make a video about it. But this one has far-reaching consequences, I think. And it's good to be aware and follow along with what's happening and make sure you take steps to be compliant, because the last thing you want to do is get that $42,000 per infraction fine, because that is a business destroyer. Luckily, YouTube and Google have deep pockets so they can afford the $170 million. But they can't afford too many of those. Their money's not unlimited, so too many of those fines and they're gonna have real problems. And that's why they're really taking drastic steps on YouTube to lock down the kids' content and make it what sounds like to be totally unshareable. Bottom line, I'm rambling, let me wrap it up. Follow COPPA and make sure that you are compliant if you feel you need to be. If you don't know, I'm afraid the best solution is to go and talk to a lawyer, and that costs money, but that would cost less money than it would to pay all those fines. So in broad strokes, that's the important information about COPPA. You should definitely read up on it. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure you subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss any future videos. And then check out this less serious video up here where I show you how to create a front-end login form using Elementor. And then check out this one down here where I show you how to speed up your website using WP Rocket. My name is Bjorn Allpass from WP Learning Lab. Until next time, keep crushing it, and I will see you in the next video.